Hello, welcome to class. My name is Mr. Denny from the Royal Tutors. It's my pleasure to be connected with you on this virtual space. In today's class, we will be learning relative clauses. Relative clauses. Can you repeat that after me? Good. Relative clauses. Can you say that? One more time. Relative clauses. To begin with, do you have an idea of what this topic means? Have you heard about it before? If you have heard about a relative clause, you can put it down in your notebook somewhere there, just as a proof. But if you haven't heard about it before, guess what? You're going to learn a lot in this class. But before we move on, I'd like that we consider our lesson objectives. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to, number one, identify the words used with relative clauses. Two, you will be able to identify a relative clause. And three, you will be able to create your own sentences that contain relative clauses. Are you in on this with me? Yes. So let's move on. But before we talk about relative clauses, I'd like us to quickly do a quick check on what clauses are. Are you ready? Let's have it. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject and verb, predicate, you may want to say. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb. Can you say that? Beautiful. But then, there are two types of clauses, and I believe you must have heard about them before. What are the two types of clauses? Do you still remember? You don't need to be bothered. Here are they on the screen. We have the independent clause. An independent clause can also be called a main clause. An independent clause can also be called a main clause. And we have a dependent clause. A dependent clause can be called a subordinate clause. All right? Now, very quickly, I want to put something on the screen. What exactly is an independent clause and what is a dependent clause? Do you have an idea? An independent clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb and can stand on its own. It can make sense on its own. When you give an example of an independent clause or a main clause, the listener or the reader understands what you're saying. For example, I went to the store. That's a complete sentence. In this sentence, the thought is complete. Anyone you said this to definitely would understand you. But let's look at a dependent clause. As the name suggests, dependent. It simply means that it cannot make a complete thought. It is dependent on other things in a sentence for it to make sense. Let's look at an example. It says, when I went to the store. When I went to the store. That's not a complete expression. If someone says this to you, what would you say? Ah, when you went to the store, so what happened? Because that expression is not a complete one. Okay? So that is what we have for independent and dependent clause. Now, why are we doing this check? It's simple. Before we can talk about a relative clause, it's important that we do a revision of what an independent clause or a dependent clause means. Why? Because a relative clause is an example of a dependent clause. I'll say that again. Because a relative clause is an example of a dependent clause. We have types of dependent clause, but we don't have types of an independent clause. What are the types of a dependent clause? I'll type this on the screen. They are number one, noun clause. Two, we have adjective clause. And three, we have adverb clause. Let me put it somewhere here. Oh, you would say, but sir, there is no relative clause here. These are the three major types of dependent clauses that we have. But guess what? An adjective clause is also a relative clause. I'll say that again. An adjective clause is also a relative clause. Now that I've given you a definition of a clause, independent clause, dependent clause with an example, it's time for us to consider what a relative clause truly is. Now, I need you to crack your bones, yeah, and get set for the main meal. Welcome back. So here we have what is a relative clause? A relative clause is a type of dependent clause. I mentioned that earlier. I said there are three types of dependent clause. We have the noun clause, the adjective clause, and the adverb clause. And then I said that an adjective clause is also known as a relative clause. Number two, a relative clause can never stand on its own. Relative clauses cannot stand on their own. Why? Because they are an example of a dependent clause, and a dependent clause cannot stand on its own. 3. Relative clauses are used to give extra information about the noun in the main clause. Relative clauses are used to give extra information about the noun in the main clause. Okay, good. Let us consider how you can identify or recognize a relative clause in an expression. I've got this question oftentimes. Hi, Mr. Day. How do I know that this is a relative clause? Well, here is the answer. Look for these words in a sentence. Pay attention to what information follows these words. Are you ready? Now let me unveil the words. Hmm, here they are. And here it is again. The first one is who, whom, whose, which, that, where, when, why. Guess what? They are the WH words. So if you see the WH words in an expression, definitely know that this is introducing a relative clause. Now, the only exception here that we have is that, THAT, all right, that. Now, this is the only exception that we have amongst the WH words that we have. Okay, so anytime you see these words, you get to understand that they are going to introduce a relative clause. So let's move on very quickly. This is an example. Identify the main clause noun and the relative pronoun slash adverb, which is also known as the WH words. We have to do two things in these expressions, in this activity. Number one, we need to identify the main clause noun, and also we need to, identify the relative pronoun or the adverb, which are basically the WH words. Now, the woman who lives next door is a close friend. The woman who lives next door is a close friend. What is the main clause noun and what is the relative pronoun in this expression? Well, I don't know what your answer is, by the way, but let's reveal it. The woman is the main clause noun. Woman is the main clause noun. Movie is the main clause noun for the second expression, and student is the main clause noun for the third sentence. So, what about the relative pronoun or adverb? Would you guess that? No, just try. Well, are you saying who, that, and who? Hmm. Well, we never can tell. Let's see. Yeah, and that's right. Good. So, why are these special? Look at what I have here. This is introducing the relative clause. Can you see it? These relative pronouns and adverb introduce the what? The relative clause. And then we have it here as well. Can you see this? Who lives next door that I watched last night? Who won the competition? Now, let's look at this very quickly. In the definition of a relative clause, I said something very profound. Number one, I said that they are going to act as extra information. All right? So it's just to expand the sentence. If I take this out of the sentence, what do I have? I'm going to have the woman is a close friend. This is really interesting. Truly, relative clauses are going to act as additional information. What about if I take this out of the second sentence? What do I have? Can you say it out? The movie was quite boring. Thank you. What about the third sentence? The student received a prize. Good. The student received a prize. Can you now see that in these three expressions, the relative clauses acted as additional information to the what? To the noun. They gave additional information about the noun. The first sentence is the woman. What type of woman? Oh, who lives next door? Oh, now I get the movie. Oh, which movie? That I watched last night. Oh, I get it now. The student. Which student are you talking about? Who won the competition? Oh, I get it now. I get it now. So, this is what you get here. Relative clauses act as extra information in a sentence. Now, which sentences have a relative clause? Find the nouns and the relative pronoun and adverb to help you. So, you're asking, Mr. Ade, how will I do this? You're going to do it. But before then, let me show you something very profound. Look at this information right here. The WH words need to add information to the main nouns to be a relative clause. So if they are standing alone, you can pick that. But if they are acting as an extra information to the nouns and an expression, then I'd say it's good to go. All right, so let's do the first one. Who is that? Well, this isn't adding extra information to a noun, in a sentence. So I'll say no. What about the second one? My friend, who is a ballerina, is performing on Friday. How do you say this? Who is a relative pronoun, right? And it's introducing a relative clause. Aside from that, it's acting as an extra information to the friend. It's telling us what kind of friend it is. So this is a go. Now you're going to do the rest yourself. Which house is for sale? Is this correct? Is this adding an extra information in a sentence? Do you think so? If you said it's not adding an extra information in the sentence, then that's right. This is a no-go area. The house, which is painted blue, is for sale. Which is painted blue is a relative clause and it's adding an information to the what? To the noun. So that's correct. When I arrived, I was angry. When I arrived, I was angry. So what do you say about this? Is this correct? Is it giving additional information about the noun? Well, if you said no, you're right. The last expression. What do you say about the last expression? The day when I flew to Singapore was the day of the storm. So if you take this out of the sentence, does this make sense? The day was the day of the storm. Yes, it does. And we have this. So let's see if we got this correctly. Okay, are you ready? Now let me review the answer. Yeah. We got everything. I'm so glad. Yeah. So now you can see that the rules do work. Let's see the next one. This activity has to be done by you. Can you spot the relative clause? Number one, the book that I borrowed from the library is due tomorrow. The book that I borrowed from the library is due tomorrow. So, what is the relative clause here? Let me tell you something. You just need to identify the relative pronoun that introduces the relative clause. Once you get that WH word or the TH that's there, you underline it, and then you can get it. So, oh, I have one here. That. So let's pay attention to the words that come after that. That I borrowed from the library. So if you take this out, this underlying expression, will the sentence still make sense? Let's see. The book is due tomorrow. Yeah, it does make sense. So that I borrowed from the library is the relative clause. All right, good. And let me also add this, that your relative clause most times will be in between the subject and the verb. It's going to be in between the subject and the verb. This is the subject and this is the verb, right? Good. Okay, so let me clean this so that we can see if that was right. You ready? Yes, we got it correctly. That I borrowed from the library. So I'm not going to help you. You're going to do the rest yourself. So let's move on to the second example. I mean the second activity. The woman who lives next door is a doctor. The woman who lives next door is a doctor. I'm going to reveal the answers. Who lives next door? I hope you're right. Okay. The text says the girl whose birthday is today is my best friend. The girl whose birthday is today is my best friend. Whose birthday is today? That's correct. And the fourth one. The movie which we watched last night was intriguing. The movie which we watched last night was intriguing. Which we watched last night. That's correct. And the fifth one. The city where I grew up is known for its beautiful parks. The city where I grew up is known for its beautiful parks. The city where I grew up is known for its beautiful parks. Where I grew up, is that your answer? That's correct. Now, which words introduce the relative clause? Which words introduce the relative clause? These are the relative clauses, right? These. Now, in these underlined expressions, which are the relative clauses, which word introduce them? That's okay, who, okay, whose, okay, which, and where. Let's see if we're right. Yeah, we got it. We got it. We get it. Okay, so we are going to take another activity right here. And this I'm not going to help you, just going to do it down. I mean, write it down in your notebook. Okay, this is the next activity. You have to spot the relative clause. Pause the video and write your answers down in your notebook. Okay, what's your answer? I'm going to review the answer. Whom I met at the party. That's it. Two, the reason why she resigned from her job was never discussed. Why she resigned from her job. Thank you. Three, the day when we met wasn't the summer. When we met? Is that your final answer? Okay, good. Which words introduce these clauses? Yeah, and here they are. Whom, why, and when. Okay, this is going to be your take home work. It's simple. You're to match the sentence to its relative clause. For instance, look at the first expression to the left. It says the book that was captivating. The book that was captivating. So we need to fill in the space with the right relative clause. Would it be the book who scored the highest marks? Hmm. The student that my dad drives. I don't know. The car that I read last night is a hybrid. The movie who scored the highest marks? I don't know. You just have to match it. It could be like this. It could be like this. Just do that. Put them down in your notebook and match them. This is another one. Put this down in your notebook too and match them to their correct relative clause. Okay. This is the final take home work for you. Look at the sentences and think up a relative clause. The house dash is my aunt's. The cat dash is now sleeping. My friend will be at the event. My last job was quite difficult. The student was top of the class. So you need to think of a relative clause that you put here, 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 and here. So when you are done, you have to snap your work and then send it to the director. Good. Finally, finally, let's look at the summary before we call it a day. Relative clauses are a type of dependent clause. Do you remember? I'm going to remind you again. There are three types of dependent clauses. We have the noun clause, the adverb clause, and then the adjective clause. The adjective clause is also known as the relative clause. Okay. The second thing that you need to know, they can never stand on their own. Yeah, relative clauses cannot stand on their own. If they do, they won't make sense. And the third thing, they are used to give extra information about the noun in the main clause. Now we have come to the end of today's virtual class. I trust that you really enjoyed the class, and I hope that you're going to apply everything that you have learned today in real life situations. That's good. Once again, my name is Mr. Dini from the Royal Tutors, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.